Welcome to Take Me to the Cloud, a place for business professionals to hear insights and best practices from industry experts that combine cloud systems, operations, supply chain, and finance.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining Take Me to the Cloud podcast. I'm Kim Gordon from Management Consulting Services at Witham. I'm joined by a special guest, Amy Robinson. And today we are talking about what is change management and project management. There are differences, there are similarities. So this is really an intro topic. I'm going to hand the ball over to Amy. Amy, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself? What do you do at Witham? And what is change management?
Sure, Kim. Thank you for having me. So right now I am in the automotive practice at Witham. I specialize in assurance services. And so I've spent about half of my career in the dealership space. And then interestingly, the other half of my career was spent in internal firm services or internal firm kind of operations at another large professional services firm. And we did a lot of work in integration management and change management during my time there. So I was thrilled to come in and kind of speak to a topic that was near and dear to my heart for the past several years, and that's change management. And the first key is to really understanding change management is what is it? So in and of itself, change management really focuses on the human side of change within an organization. So how are we preparing, supporting, and helping our individuals and our teams within the organization adapt to change? Right? We're dealing with the human side. We're ensuring that people not only adopt the new processes and technologies and ways of working, but we're minimizing the resistance to change so that these are successfully integrated into the organization.
Absolutely. I agree with that definition. And what I always find interesting about change management, it's the most underestimated aspect of any transformation you want to do. Really, the success of any change you're going to do is dependent fully on, are people going to do it and really go along with it? So we often find way more success in projects that have change management incorporated into their fibers. And then that segues really nicely into project management. So the project management is often confused or maybe conflated with concepts of change management. It is distinct, but it could also help drive the outcomes for change management. So project management basically is a set of methodologies to drive a transformation project. It could be an ERP system implementation or a policy change. It's a specific methodology that divides a project into different phases or stages. You manage different risk indicators in a project to drive it forward. And really the key is to minimizing the risk of a project, ensuring that you achieve the project's outcomes. Like, what is the intended goal for implementing a new system, for example? If you accomplish the project, you're going to meet that goal, as well as managing risk indicators like budget, your resource risk, your timeline risk, your scope risk. All those are aspects of project management. Now, what I will say is that project management, while it could be a driver for change management, sometimes it butts heads with change management.
Right.
One of the examples of the project outcomes really are the narrowed perspective of a project manager. So they're not thinking necessarily the organization. Just, did I accomplish my work stream for the week? What are some of the blockers getting in my way? So it's within the context of the project. I find change management to be broader in perspective. What are your thoughts on what I said?
Yeah, absolutely agree, Kim. That was one of my first questions, or trying to understand the relationship between change management and project management. Because the truth is that a change management initiative touches almost all of the branches in an organization, right? So change management, you're with the stakeholders and the leaders designing or understanding the strategic objectives of where the company is going. You're working with the communication department as far as getting things down to all the way down to all your employees about change. You're working with HR on developing training programs. You are working with the project managers in IT and developing. You're touching every branch of the organization in a change management strategy. So when you think about project management too, kind of the key activities, they are very focused on the task at hand. And typically, right? What is my scope? What is my budget? Where are my tasks? We are on really good project managers. Love them. We are on top of this project. I can tell you exactly where we are. Where's our milestones and dates? Highly focused on that. Change management, we are preparing stakeholders for change, right? We are addressing the resistance and concern. So while the PM is in there just getting the tasks done, change management needs to think, well, who are the people on the PM is trying to get things done that are not wanting to do the change, and how do we get them to kind of help and get through the change and understand what's in it for me and why are we doing this? How is change management? Change management supports people through the transition, right? Everyone is human. We're going to have different emotions. Everyone feels certain ways about different changes, and change management tries to have a strategy to support people through that time. It's also focused on ensuring that these changes are sustained in the long run, right? So when the project's done, you got PMs, we kind of get to dust our hands off and move on. Change management is worried about, has everyone adopted this change? How is it going? And we're measuring and monitoring the adoption at the end of the day.
I agree with that. And I think project management can evolve to a more integrated approach to certain management's objectives at the end of the day. I think project management has very defined objectives related to the project. Incorporate the change management objectives in there, manage the change process like a project, and then also use the project as a means to really use it as a way to train your stakeholders into that change champion role, meaning that change, the real hard part is sustaining change, sustaining the momentum when you don't necessarily have a project manager after everything's been implemented, and then it's assumed the organization can flourish with whatever the change is, right? So I find projects are a really great testing ground. Sometimes who you elect as a change champion, they're great in the beginning. Once you kind of test their mettle, you find that maybe that role isn't suited for them. And then you find someone else flourishing under the project that you want to give them an elevation opportunity for that change advocacy role, right? So,
right.
Project management is a great way to be a training ground for change management. And that's where the project managers can really integrate their approach and really monitor that aspect, like not just their key indicators that are more tactical, really look at that people side. Are my people coming along, even though my metrics seem to be telling me everything's okay? So there is that subjective side, I think, project management will integrate. And that really evolves to the role of really getting to the program management side, where a project manager evolves to that strategic level thinking. Before we get into program management, what are your thoughts on how project managers can better integrate and support change management?
When project managers typically start to get involved in the process, and in my experience of change management. So change management starts much earlier than the project would typically kick off, right? So it is way at the beginning of the process where we have strategic, stakeholders or key leaders are saying, what are our strategic objectives for the company for the next year? And what might change? We're talking typically, bigger rocks. So mergers, acquisitions, ERP system implementations, branding or strategy changes, restructuring, integrations, policy change. These are big rocks that happen every day at big organizations, right? And so it's deciding, the leaders deciding first, hey, this is something we want to move forward with, or it could be, hey, we have a problem and we're not quite sure how we want to move forward. Change management starts at the very beginning and gets all of the key stakeholders together, and then also brings in a lot of representatives from the branches I mentioned earlier. So typically, like the IT or the PMOs, a representative from there would be involved, right? In HR. Communications. We'd have not just the top executives, we'd have other mid-level managers and leaders, and maybe even some younger, newer people in the organization too. And they would all get together at the very beginning and say, what's the right move forward for the company? And everyone gets to have a collective voice. And that's the genesis of the change management. It's getting your first group, right, of the change champions and the key stakeholders involved. And that's kind of really where, if PM can be involved at the start of that, they're the ones that are able to come in and say, this is, we can't, they get to have a voice at the table and they get to see the process, and then change management will really kind of continue through the process. It's like to me, in my opinion, it's an overlay that works really closely with the PMO, and understanding too that not everything needs a massive change management structure, right? So sometimes there are going to be projects, right, that don't need a huge communication and training plan rolled out to the entire company, right? But I think you and I talked a little bit about, if the PMs kind of understand more of the elements of the change management process and how we kind of try and get human beings through that process, then when they're on their own on those smaller projects, the cross-training between kind of PM and change management will really elevate all of the projects across the company.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, sometimes you have such a small project, they want it to really be narrowed in scope. They want to be effective with the budget with it. So that the client's not always going to say, sign me up for this huge overhaul when it really doesn't warrant that. So the integrated skill set approach on the PM level with change management, as well as integrating it with the rest of the consulting teams, teaching them change management principles. And sometimes it's really a conversation with the executive on the other side and saying, you know, we're not doing a formal change management process, but here's things you can do on your side to help ensure it goes smoothly. So it's more of an advisory capacity for those smaller projects. Then they can see our potential. And if they do want to do a massive overhaul, they can really ask for more help on that change management support. But just giving them the tools, the advisory on that is, I think, a great way to right size approach. That's a whole other topic for right sizing it. I think I want to conclude this conversation really on the topics of, once you have changes going and then the ball keeps rolling and everyone's seeing success from this one project because of the effectiveness of the change management, what are some of the outcomes from that? Like, what are, I know everyone's full of ideas, they want to do more. What would be your approach to kind of contain that and really still change?
No, I think that is, we'll love to have another conversation. I think coming out of when people come out, we are excited about change, we have all these ideas. How do you then harness all of that and basically can turn it into a project, right? And manage that. And I think the other discussion we could have next time is, what are my risks if we do not use any kind of change management principles or methodologies? So if we decide, hey, our company doesn't need this, we're implementing this change and the employees will just have at it, which is a strategy in and of itself. What are my risks, right? So if I decide to kind of go about things that way, what am I giving up? What I could potentially be giving up in that way?
I love that. We just create a whole series.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Amy, so much for joining today. This was a great intro on change management, the differences between change management and project management. And please stay tuned for our next episodes regarding right-sizing change, as well as what comes after an initial change and how to manage a full program of it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
You've been listening to Take Me to the Cloud. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to be alerted of new episodes. For more information, visit withum.com.